It feels like it's been forever, doesn't it? Since that first time you heard of Outer Worlds, a first-person Technicolor sci-fi RPG coming from Obsidian. It looked a bit like Firefly with the saturation turned up to 100 and Fox actually supporting it. Or a bit like Mass Effect without the number 3 and a space boy asking if you want to play Simon Says with a 3-colored ending because the 4th color was just too friggin' hard for them to do unless they could sell it as a microtransaction later. And sure, it is true. We've had Pillars of Eternity, we've had Tyranny, South Park, and Pillars 2, so you could say we've had a bit of our cake and we've eaten it too. But despite those titles' quality, it's really Fallout New Vegas that defines many gamers' love with Obsidian, and it's only Obsidian that could make you love a lead character carrying enough radioactive material in his pockets that his balls probably sounded like a baby rattle filled with shotgun shells and some fishing lures. And we finally get to see if they pulled it off here with Outer Worlds. This comes out October 25th for $59.99 on PC, Xbox, and PS4, as well as on Game Pass for PC and Xbox for whatever your subscription amount you paid for it is. I'm Karak, this is ACG, and as always, it's my continuing mission to give you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. If you like the video, hit the subscribe button and make sure to activate all the notifications. Let's see how the game did, shall we? So here's my review for Outer Worlds. Old lady space Viagra, party member special moves, and finally knowing where Gallagher went after his comedy act failed. Graphics are up first. Outer Worlds does a great job to separate itself from the developer's previous titles, or should I say the primary one it's going to be compared to, and that's Fallout New Vegas. And the first way it does this is with its color palette. Everything is purples and blues and neon greens and deep bloody red, a color palette that channels No Man's Sky so damned hard Sean's probably looking at it and thinking, damn it, I wonder if they have sandworms in their games. It doesn't matter if you're taking out sentry bots with explosive shock grenade launchers on a moon in the midst of an asteroid field, or just skippity-doo-dah across a sunlit valley of a planet overrun with enemies, all hand-picked from a top 10 video of the most colorful creatures that probably live on Alien Worlds video. And that color set is absolutely gorgeous. Everywhere in the world design, Obsidian goes for let's make it look good with a sci-fi flair, but put realism solidly in the back burner. I'm 100% okay with that. It's saccharine for your eyes. When you leave your first little settlement and go out into the wildlands, it's instantly noticeable. And remember, this is not an open world game. It's more like something akin to a hub-based world, with a movable hub being your ship. And those locations are a fixed set of maps, some smaller and some larger, all of them having hidden areas and long side quest lines. But interestingly enough, while it's not open world, the way the game has you traveling between locations in your spaceship, as well as how interconnected some of those locations are, it works them to actually feel like they have a larger footprint than statistically they do. Many locations have multiple ways to get to quest points, secret ways around enemies, and a nice organic feel to them regardless of it being more gamified than maybe an open world would be. When it comes to character design, almost everyone is unique looking, and for the most part, gone are the old days of coming into a town and seeing generic head number 2 with generic beard number 3 and comb over A. Most of the NPCs have very unique traits and emotions as you're working with them, against them, or just sending them please die messages out of a superheated gun wielded by a drunken party member with a top hat on. The crazy isn't too crazy, but it's just out there enough to work. There's a deft hand here in the design where function meets funny, and it's a reflection of the humor that Outer Worlds exhibits. Armor and helmets all have enough flair to make them look unique, some with larger cooling pipes or accessories hanging off of them. Others are just giant plastic moons you can slip onto your noggin whenever you want. Now, lip syncing goes from okay to good. It's better than many games, but there will be those times where you're going to see a character talking and think to yourself, are they reading someone's lips behind me, or are they actually talking to me? Graphically, though, especially in the cities, Outer Worlds does have some slippage. The game tries its level best to fix the age-old 10 people running a city big enough for 5,000 trope that exists in many of these games. You still walk through some areas, though, and wonder how an economy works if just Joe, Bob, and Peter trade the same friggin' $5 back and forth for services rendered. It's like, hey, Joe, Bob, here's that $5 I owe you for the beer. Thanks, Peter. Oh, here's that $5 back I owe you for the bracelet I bought for one-legged Sue. And it's just back and forth. Also, while there are some moments of true environmental storytelling in the game, apparently all their cleaning robots absolutely suck. And a lot of times that can leave you with some futuristic Praetorian Guard-looking SOB standing over the top of their best friend and lamenting about the lack of exciting things to do in town, like he sees that crap all the time and just shrugged and thought, John was a jack-off anyway, so the best place I can stand is on his dead face. One thing you notice when traveling is that some pop-up does occur, as well as some low-detail textures that can rear their ugly head, but it's not exactly noticeable, and it does nothing to really neuter the incredible moments of coming over a hill and seeing two warring cities, one on each corner, their old bulb and sputtering electricity billboard signs flashing supposedly safe areas for travelers at night. If Outer Worlds is set to max settings anywhere, it's in atmosphere. And of course, that brings us to performance. Now, I got to play on the console, Xbox One. It's pretty rough with what looks to be an upscaled 1080p picture from a lower res, while the Xbox X runs at native 4K and a very usually solid 30 FPS, dropping frame rate occasionally when coming into some areas after a load. It looks really good, and there are some nice anti-aliasing solutions there that keeps the image fairly stable. I will say that if you hate chromatic aberration, sorry, because it's here and it's in droves, and you can't turn it off, though on the PC you can. Personally, I think Outer Worlds' presentation is gorgeous overall, despite some hiccups, and it's a visual discourse on the argument between open world and hub worlds, and which is better, and it scores a couple points for the latter. And that brings us to gameplay and a bit about the story. You play as a person from Earth, sent to the Halcyon system in the galaxy's largest ejaculation as frozen spacemen and women are flung off from the Earth into the depths of space to find a habitable egg. And in this case, that egg is the Outer Worlds in that system. Far distant planets beset in an almost Western sci-fi setting of danger and exploration. Think Firefly mixed with Flash Gordon, and you're more than halfway there. Now, speaking of halfway there, that's about all the farther your ship gets. Accidents will happen, and they've happened here. And while everyone else showed up on time and basically gold rushed it up, you show up 70 years later after all the various corporations have got a stranglehold on the planets and the moons, space stations, and other mysterious locations that exist in the game. But don't worry, it's not your fault you're late. Spaceship telemetry is not your field of work, but getting down there with the help of a mysterious benefactor and clearing the way out for the rest of the people on your ship is your job. That's once you figure out who you actually is. First off, you start the character creation by picking a male or a female, throwing some general looks their way like beards and scars and makeup if you're worried about randomly attending a cowboy ball. You staple on a hairdo from an assorted number and so on. And while this isn't the most robust character creator, I like the variation. And yes, you can create some straight up monsters. Oh, just absolutely nasty. These are humans whose mothers would just say nope and leave them in the maternity ward and sneak out the exit. Now, from there, you jump into the character attributes. These really define how you're going to play, like strength and dexterity, intelligence, perception, charm, and temperament, and they dictate your basic capabilities. Then you pick your skills. Skills come into play both behind the scenes, but also are usually what you'll see being challenged in the narrative systems in the game and are augmented by the attribute. And at first, skill points raise related skills in groups until you get to 50, then each skill has to be raised on its own, individually up to 100. For example, 1 point in the category ranged affects handguns, long guns, and heavy weapons, reflecting a shared basic knowledge of guns in general, but mastery requires focusing points on one of them. Also, for each 20 points spent, you get special unlocks. Leadership, in this case, giving you the ability to command your party members with special attacks. Others add the ability to pickpocket and so on. One thing I liked about this is that Obsidian made sure that the first unlocks were the largest impactors in gameplay. That way you don't have to level up to 60 to get most of the special actions. There's a couple outliers to that rule, but not many. Lastly, you pick an aptitude. Consider this what you did prior to being frozen into a giant dumb colonist sickle. Things like construction, where shock damage is reduced, or factory worker, where you supposedly picked up the extra skill by not getting smashed in the machinery. Always with Obsidian, going that extra mile here, explaining in a bit of narrative why the bonuses make some kind of sense. Also, every other time you level up, you can take perks which adjust various, mostly physical parts of the character. Party members also get their own smaller perk ladders as well. And then you're off. Outer World begins simply enough. You have a ship, and like all good ships, that thing's a piece of shit and is broken, so you're questing to repair it. You go about exploring the cities, talking to characters, getting quests that take you both around the cities themselves as well as out into the unknown, past whatever guard walls that protect the small bits of civilization that exists and into danger. Every location also has its various factions that you can raise or lower reputation with by doing jobs, and trust me, that balance is going to be the name of the game for many people as you play Outer Worlds, because none of these bastards get along. It's like throwing a sandwich into a freight train of starving people. It's just claws and teeth and nails. This is where the flexibility in Obsidian's writing starts to come through, as each situation is a bit different. People in the same groups don't get along. Old alliances are broken, then reborn, then broken again. Enemies are friends, friends are friends, friends who are enemies are now friends with your other enemies. There's a very nice lived-in feeling to the game world's location, and a lot of twists and turns. And much of that is due to the narrative that explains the rise and fall of the groups prior to your arrival. What really helps this game, though, is the ability to finish quests in a number of ways. If you want to take out a group that murdered someone just so you can get on someone else's good side, you can. Or you can threaten them to leave town, then follow them out and murder them in the 7-acre alien woods like a homicidal Winnie the Pooh. Or you can twist their use to something else, or leave them and hope whatever happens doesn't come back on you. As you explore, you're beset by skill checks in dialogue to fix broken items, work through the lies of striking dock workers and horrible leaders, perform some amateur sleuthing, do some intimidating, and pretty much everything else you can think of. Skill checks also dictate what options you have in discussion, and yes, it is possible to have dead ends. And speaking of dead ends, a lot of those will be outside, and that's where Outer Worlds shines. Colony locations now emptied as the city's limits have shrunk down due to constant animal attacks that leave decayed buildings on the outskirts of a lot of these cities, each positively overflowing with enemies from creatures of all kinds like cannibals, check, ruffians, check, scallywigs, check, scoundrels, check, strangely nice family asking you to come to dinner, checkity check. Wait, no. It's at those times it's actually best to remember that everyone in Outer Worlds can be killed. And to kill, you use them weapons, and swords and hammers, axes, poles, staves, stun batons, and all manner of up-close weapons are available, and each has combo moves of its own, as well as an assortment of ranged weapons from handguns, shotguns, long-range rifles, sniper rifles, grenade launchers, miniguns, flamethrowers, and a number of special and hidden guns laying around the world. Also, Obsidian has absolutely nailed it out of the park for people who are stat hounds, as each gun has a detailed number of stats from max ranges to aim spread reductions, noise range for alerting enemies, DPS, damage done when a weapon soaks through armor, and more. All of the weapons can be modded in slots with items you find in the game world, from changing their entire damage type, which is actually really useful as plasma does more damage to humans, but electricity does more to robots, and depending on where you are, you might need to switch it. You can also do different special effects and barrel sights and quick reloads and more. As you're fighting, you can also slow down time for placing shots. It also allows for you to use your HUD to see information on the enemies, like weak spots. It also won't take long for you to happen upon your first party member that you can have join your team. There's a lot of variation here, while each character has their own special move as well. They do have a small number of AI sets you can choose from, like up close, mixed, or long range attacks, how far they stay away from you, and how aggressive they are. It's not much, but it actually helps. But to me, it's the special attacks that are just hilarious. The game splits off to show you as each goes about their business, like one of your characters that, for reasons I cannot fathom, double leg drop kicks everyone. Bugs and lizards and slugs and humans and hounds and even flying creatures. Just ups and Marty Jannetty's them. I love that mix of narrative personality, but here we also get a cinematic moment that cuts to them smashing someone with a hammer, and there's a moment for the side characters to shine that sometimes we don't get in other games. Nevertheless, no matter how good of a shot you are, sometimes that AI is just going to land a lucky shot on you, and that's when the armor comes in. Armor has its base stat as well as a mod location for adjusting at workbenches. You can upgrade the items, you can break them down there, you can repair them, or you can add armor gadget skills, utility mods to the armor and the weapons. Interestingly enough, these bonuses stack even if they are on party members' armor, so switching up members can actually see you raising your ability to intimidate people, but losing some overall carrying capacity, and I actually really like that. It stretched the feeling of strategy of which characters to bring into something, far more interesting than other titles. All items have a durability rating as well, reducing damage taken or damage done. And once you're able to repair your ship, you can travel to other locations in that system. I also like that Obsidian didn't ignore the ship itself. They take care to occasionally have quests cycle back to the ship and its AI. Also, items you find around the game world in the junk section of your inventory seem to make it into the party members' rooms, which I thought were cool. Now, this all sounds great, and much of it is, that's for sure. It's hard not to have a smile on your face when you fool some conniving bastard not once, but twice, and then somehow also talk him out of his position of power. But there are some bumps that I noticed. For example, also, for some reason, when using a controller, talking and unholstering the gun is the same damned button. So talking to anyone or interacting many times will cause you to just sling out your smoke wagon like you're getting ready to go full poster on some poor dock worker who just happened to be standing next to a platform you wanted to access, and it looks ridiculous. Also, strangely enough, for a game based on quests, you can only really track one out of them. I would have liked to be able to track more. Also, the gunplay works. It's not really the game's highlight, though, with weapons having recoil and such, but not really a hugely tangible tactile feeling to them. It's fine, and it works, and the ability to send your teammates out and mark enemies is very nice, but I wanted a little bit more oomph. As you guys know, I try to test the game on all difficulties so that those who want all the challenge of a timeless QTE can do the easy way, or you can have rock hard instant death, and Outer Worlds has all those covered. It goes all the way from story, which is easiest, to supernova. And supernova is really Obsidian's version of ranger difficulty. It gives them more hit points, it does more damage from enemies, but it also makes you need to eat and drink and sleep to live, as well as companions being able to fully die. Crippling body wounds, weapon durability takes a huge impact, and the only way to fast travel is to your ship. Only able to sleep in your ship, and saving is also locked to your ship, as well as quick saves being limited. Those are some huge changes to the way the game plays. Outer Worlds really isn't the longest game in the world. It's completed easily under 40 hours, but it is a very enjoyable romp through a unique world that feels a bit like other games all smashed together, that's for sure, but there's something very unique about it. And that brings us to sound, music, and voice.
Zoe and I were going to watch the serials, as is our custom. She never turned up. I looked around, but she was nowhere to be found.
Which makes me the most important guard in the colony. Yeah. That means I got a key to the minister's estate, my own personal UDL-issued shotgun. They don't give those out to just anyone. Yep, I've nearly made it to the top, my friend. I'm just 2 promotions away from on-the-job bathroom breaks.
And the first thing we'll cover is sound, and this is pretty good. Overall, the gun sounds are fine. They have a good deal to them that it lean towards the energy and elemental sides of damage types. And most guns have a nice, somewhat canned trail-off sound that gives them a wider footprint, and certainly a longer one than I expected. I do have to say the shotguns themselves aren't exactly wowing me. They have a little bit of a poppy sound to them that just doesn't necessarily fit. When it comes to the environmental sounds, they really do sound good. One thing I noticed right away is that the towns have a low EBA movement and not that typical one person there selling some tuna fish and 50 people haggling over it kind of sound effects. Outdoors are the same as well. They've got a nice muted sound when someone's talking in a helmet versus out of it during excursions, and a lot of various different animal sounds. Overall, I'd say it's pretty good. That brings us to music. One of the first things that is instantly noticeable in Outer Worlds is a feeling of solitary wonder in the music, and there's a leaner presentation than I think Obsidian's past titles. Sometimes it's just 2 or 3 instruments and simple melodies trading back and forth and mending together and then apart again, almost like each one is a reflection of that small party you're carrying. Thematically, even in battle, there's an almost lonely feel to the music that exudes from every track. Sometimes it's just a solitary percussive element, like a fast heartbeat in the background. One track, though, I loved was trekking through the barren surface of a mysterious asteroid in this low alien tone that kept playing, and it's one in particular that just feels haunting and makes you wonder if something very bad is about to occur, and that really does level up the tension a ton. It feels very experimental, though, overall, especially when compared to previous games from Obsidian, and I think that works for Outer Worlds, but some may actually find this a bit leaner sounding than they expect when it comes to music. And that brings us to voice. For many, this might be one of the most important categories in a game, as Obsidian isn't known for their 1-2-3 storytelling, with choices in dialogue depending on intelligence. We want our no's and our yeses, but we also want to just smash somebody in the mouth, and we want to minimize intelligence to the point that your character would probably dryland drown by looking up during a rainstorm with their mouth open, wondering why the sky was leaking. And luckily, we can do most of that. I was pleasantly surprised how well they handled not only the mains, but also the side NPCs, like the riddled out and scratchy, sort of rat-a-tat-tat kind of delivery a drug user has when you confront them rifling through someone's stuff, or the first time you meet a absolutely ripped guardsman and start celebrating their successes in life by buying them drink after drink after drink in an experiment to see if you can just ignite sweat if a person has enough alcohol in them. Now, one of the standout elements of Outer Worlds, though, are the party members and how they deal with interactions in the game world. Depending on the character, they can have either a small amount or a lot to say to the NPCs you're talking to, which really makes them feel like a tangible part of the group. There are some misses, though, especially in the later locations. They have a couple NPCs that almost sound like fans that have been brought into the game, delivering a lot of stunted lines. Overall, it's just a handful. I'd say really good. And this is the last category, fun factor. It's true. Outer World does have a rough spot here or there, especially when it comes to the shooting, which it doesn't feel bad. It's just a little bit too light and airy for me when it comes down to it. But it's easy enough to ignore that because at its heart, Outer Worlds is a very enjoyable game and some really cool quests. Also, the quest design is spectacular when it comes to the later quests because they'll have you going back to locations you've been to before and seeing and noticing different things, even coming at locations from different directions. It really does make use of what it's got. Also, Obsidian games have a notoriety for being buggier than a red light district bedspread, and yet somehow, with Outer Worlds, I had a total of 2. And that is spectacular because bugs stop you from engaging in that gameplay organically. Here, that isn't a problem, and working through the unique locations, the people, and the quests is always a pleasure. It is very enjoyable to level up your characters and to engage in those side character stories as well as the NPCs. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating system, with rent being replaced by deep sale on PC. First of all, I gotta say this. If you have Game Pass, just go get the game. Everybody else, it is well worth buying. It is worth buying at this price. It is a very enjoyable title, very few bugs, a unique world, and enough content to keep a lot of RPG players busy. You can go through it in maybe 20 hours, 25 hours if you just golden pathed it. But if you don't and you start going to the side and if you crank that difficulty up, there is a lot of quests here, many of them hidden. I ended up finding a good number of quests sort of off the beaten path. And what you get is just a very enjoyable game, one that has sort of a nice stealth disguise system, excellent conversation, and enjoyable characters throughout. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. I would love for you to subscribe, hit the notification button to get all of the notifications, because as you guys know, YouTube's just screwed everything up. You can check me out on Facebook and Twitter. All my links are in the description. And you can become a patron at the Patreon website, which helps me give you guys reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. And of course, I buy a copy of every single game, even if a dev gives me the code, which in this case they did, thanks to Private Division for giving me the code to review this title. Anyway, that's it for me. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.